Hello from Los Angeles, California, where I'm calling from my tidied up hotel room. And I'm absolutely delighted to have a quick conversation, one of our conversation series with Dr. LEE HAUSNER. And I'm going to read her bio from this book, which is highly recommended, if not compulsory reading. LEE Hausner, PhD, has been a psychologist for the Beverly Hills Unified School District for a number of years and is a recognized authority in family systems and effective parenting techniques. She's a frequent presenter for business and educational organizations, both nationally and internationally, on subjects of interest to successful and affluent families. Now, this is quite an old book.
That's an old book. There's a real update on what I have done since that book. That book was written when I was a Beverly Hills psychologist, which was really quite a long time. I stayed with the district while my children were in school there. And then so I was in the district for about 17 years. And when my daughter, the youngest one, went off to college, then I moved into this kind of an international consulting model and
Well,
really then moved got much more involved with family business succession issues, with wealth transfer issues. My partner for 14 years was an attorney, a tax and estate attorney. So the whole idea about how we are dealing with money in a more effective manner was very much areas in which we were involved in. The
and you,
interesting thing is, now is I moved away from the, in quotes, parenting per se.
mm,
That is the subject now within the last 3 or 4 years that everyone wants to hear about again. On the international stage, they
yeah.
want this back about, because I think everyone is concerned about the next gen and how we get the next generation competent to manage the assets that will be transferred and to understand the responsibility of keeping a large family intact. So it's not, just about money, the tangible assets, but how does this family then stay productive, thriving, and connected?
I love that, Lee. And I know you've written two other books. One is Hats Off around family business succession. And your new book is The Legacy Family, which I'm going to order as soon as I get off this call. And I'd just like to give a bit of context. I met you a few years ago over Zoom, but we met in real life yesterday when a group of private families came to visit you, and you very generously hosted us in your condominium. I had never been in a condominium. We don't use that word. So it was fabulous. It was very exciting. I felt like I was on the Cosby Show because they used to call their condo. But it was beautiful, and you were very generous, and you told us amazing things. And I guess, you know, um, your information is, it's interesting that it's coming back. And I'm just reading this. This is my reading companion at the moment. It's about the Redstone family,
Oh,
who you may or may not act for. But yeah, it's parenting. It all comes back to parenting, unfortunately. And I asked you a question yesterday. I said, that's great parenting. At some point, the children don't want to be parented and they push you away a little bit. I said, they stop listening to you. And can you remember what your answer to me was?
I said they don't stop listening if you're willing to listen. If
That's right.
you are that listening parent that has created that kind of connection, your kids are always going to want to come and talk to you and share with you because ideally you should be the most trusted person in the life of your child. So if you're the most trusted person, then why wouldn't they want to come to you? Why wouldn't they want to share with you?
And what if you're trying to protect them from things that might be harmful, including wealth and their likely inheritance at some stage?
I don't think that I am absolutely opposed to this horrible thing about wealth being such a tragedy. Honestly and truly, it is not a tragedy. Wealth provides you so many opportunities. It gives you so many good choices. It enables you to live the life of your passion. It enables you to enrich the lives of other people. It should not be a burden. It should be a joyful type of situation. So I don't see wealth as this horrible thing that comes down on top of you. I think you should be prepared for how you are a steward because that is your responsibility. And in that stewardship, you have been given tremendous opportunities. Do you know what a gift it is to go to college and not work your way through college, to have college paid for, and to be able to participate in college at its fullest and not be exhausted because you also had to have an 8 hour a day job to pay for college? You were really able, I mean, there are so many advantages of coming where where you don't have to worry about paying the bills. All right. Now, having said that, do I think that there are some challenges that wealth brings? Yes, I think there are some challenges, but a lot has got to do with how you're using the wealth. And if you let wealth control you rather than you controlling wealth, then you get into trouble with wealth. And if you think you're defined by your wealth, then you're in trouble. I mean, this is what causes the challenges and the negativity that everyone associates with wealth. But if wealth is used productively, it just enhances. It's the icing on a well-baked cake. That's what
But
I've always
that,
said.
that's lovely to hear because in Australia, where the wealth is very new and people haven't had much experience of it, so it's wonderful to come here and get access to really amazing advisors like yourself who have seen a lot and have are able to communicate so clearly and give us a bit of hope and support. So yeah, so thank you for that. Can I ask maybe what do you think some of the building blocks for this parenting, what people should bear in mind?
You know, in the first book that I wrote, Children of Paradise, which was really a landmark book because no one had written
Yes,
about that before.
brilliant.
My major concept and the visual that I always present is of this umbrella, this great umbrella of self-esteem. And when I'm speaking, I always say to the audience, is anybody here in therapy? Because you had so much self-esteem, you got to go to undo it. And, the audience laughs because self-esteem is got two critical components. If you've got self-esteem, you feel okay unconditionally. You're not being compared to your brother, your sister, anyone else. You are lovable just because you exist. And the second is you're competent. So it's a question of in that parenting model, how do we make a child feel you are perfectly okay? You don't have to be an image of what I'm trying to create. You don't have to be like your brother, your sister. You are you and you're unique and you're wonderful in your uniqueness. And the second is how do I help you become as most competent as you can become? And that's the issue. How do you maximize your own potential? Because everyone doesn't have the same potential. In a
Mm.
given family, you can have a highly gifted kid and a kid that struggles, has ADHD, and doesn't integrate as well. And so the challenge as a parent is each child has to be viewed as specially unique. And how do I help each child become the best that they can be?
And I think that, yeah, and I think that, saying that you're okay, you're absolutely fine, it has to be genuine. It's
Yeah,
easy. They're really easy to use those words. But if the kid hears that and observes something else which clashes with that, contradicts that, and it's not resolved, because they will hear things, many things that contradict that, and it's not based on a foundation. It's you might as well not have said it, I think.
I mean, you can say that, but then you can say, I don't know why you can't buckle down and be the kind of student that your sister is. Why do I have to always keep getting bad reports? Okay, what kind of thing? What does that comment do? What does you think that comment does that make a child feel confident and okay?
It
No.
makes the sister feel great if she's listening at the bedroom or at the kitchen table.
Yeah, I do an exercise. I've done it with all my families, and I do it in lots of meetings, and it's really kind of tough. I make three columns. This is my communication baseline. And we have three columns. And there's one that says plus, and there's one that's neutral, and there's one that's negative. And then I ask the audience, what is it that you're going to say to a child that I, flying above you, invisible with a clipboard and looking down, am going to give you a check on the plus side? Now, very often, particularly in a European audience, there's like silence. They don't even know what to say. Okay. Then somebody raises their hand and says, good job. Okay. Good job. We're very tentative. And then I have to, it may be quite a while before somebody says, I love you. So I'm working the crowd to try to get things that are positive. Keep me company while I go to the market. I love to hear your thoughts. Boy, that was a great idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. You were so helpful with your sister. I so appreciate it. I know when we go away, I can always count on you to be responsible. I mean, come on, those words have to be flowing, okay? Now, and then we have that column. Then we have the neutral column. Has the dog been fed? What time is soccer practice over? Where's the newspaper? It's all it's neither plus or minus, it's routine. And then the negative, it's all the negative that you do. And I said, and if you get up in the morning and you say, Billy, the carpool is going to be here in 15 minutes. Why do we go through this every single morning? Get yourself ready and get down here because I'm not going to drive you to school. That's 5 run on negatives. And you have 5 negatives in that column. Now, what happens is it takes 5 positives to neutralize a negative. So if you're not neutralizing, if when you do this exercise, you find that you've got a lot of things on the negative, then don't tell me, yes, I think it's great that my child should feel okay and competent. You've got to be honest about what's coming out of your mouth. And the audience is really stunned. I mean, they really get very stunned with that. And I have to go through all kinds of things. Here's some positive ways that you say things. But you have to look at what's coming out of your mouth.
And it can't be a script. It's got to be learned. I mean, because we can all talk, you and I can clearly talk. We assume that we communicate clearly, and of course, it's not necessarily true.
There was a wonderful business book that was written. Do you remember the book 1 Minute Manager?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
The whole concept of that was you catch them being good. You walk around your company and you find good things to say about people. You catch them being good. That's what parents need to do as they are parenting. Now, we are very quick. When things are going the way we want them to go, we don't say anything. But the minute it doesn't go our way, now we find our mouth. I mean, you could be coming home from dinner and you're reading the newspaper and maybe your wife is cooking dinner and the kids are playing nicely and no one's saying a word. And now someone grabs someone's toy and they start fighting and instantly you're in there. Boy, you find your mouth. And so my whole concept is you got to reverse it. If you tell me, yes, I agree, Dr. Hausner, that we want these kids to have good self-esteem because that makes them resilient, that makes them productive, that's the antidote to anxiety and depression. When I feel good about myself, I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to feel anxious, in this world of enormous anxiety. Sure. It's so simple and yet very difficult. And you've got to be honest about where you're coming from yourself as you interact with with the next generation.
Yeah. And be honest with yourself and honest with your partner because the kids are watching, as we all know, very closely.
I wrote a book, the first book I wrote, which actually I don't talk about it a lot because it got stolen. No. I wrote a book called Homework Without Tears.
Oh.
And my friend said, whose tears were you talking about? Were you talking about my tears or my kids' tears? I wrote that book and Lee Cantor tried to steal it from me. We have co-authorship on it, and that's a whole long story I won't even go into. But I wrote that book because the Beverly Hills parents were making their kids crazy with homework, yelling and screaming and carrying on. And I wanted them out of the homework. So I wrote this thing about how I thought parents could be effective teaching partners with the school. And that was Homework Without Tears. About, like I don't talk about A's.
Yeah.
It's not the issue. The issue is being a responsible student. And a responsible student goes to school every day. They do their homework and they turn it in. They study for exams. If your child is doing that, he or she will get the best grades depending upon where you have placed them. And if you've placed them in the highly competitive private school where everybody is capable and the bell-shaped curve isn't normal, it's up here, then you know what? Your child's going to feel under a lot of pressure. You've got to look at school placement in terms of what's the best interest of that child. And if you have 3 children, they may not all be right for the same school. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are become important.
I quote in my book the guy who wrote about the 10,000 hours. Yes, thank you. And somebody, it was quoted in Australia actually about schools and rating schools and prestigious schools. And the quote was along the lines that the person who feels the prestige most is not the student, but the parent.
You know,
So,
when I do this bell-shaped curve, the audience, I do a bell-shaped curve. And I say, you have a child that's got an IQ of 120. It's a good IQ. Okay.
mm,
And that child in the normal population is in the upper quartile of the bell-shaped curve. That's a kid who's doing well in school, and the teacher smiles at that kid, and that's a kid that the other kids say, oh yeah, I like him on my team for this project. But you know, you are a highfalutin fancy parent, and you say, I'm not going to have my child in this normal environment, so I'm going to put him into the best private school. Now here in California, it's like John Thomas Dye. What John Thomas Dye doesn't tell you is that their bell-shaped curve starts at 120 and goes to 185.
yeah,
So you just suddenly took a child who was feeling really good about himself as a learner. And then not only do you put him in that, you say, and I expect good grades because I'm paying all this money. So it's like a double whammy. Do you see
I
how that
do.
gets involved?
I do. I do. Can I was subtly referencing my book because you said some things about it recently. I wonder if I could call on you to repeat and maybe show us the if you've got the book there.
Which the Children of Paradise?
No, no, the one I gave you yesterday.
Oh, this book, your book here. Yeah.
So yeah, any thoughts on that? Did you get a chance to go through it?
I've been going through this book. My thoughts were you did the most amazing job of really understanding the literature, of the people who have had important things to say, of curating it in a form that is so user friendly. I think you just did an extraordinary job.
Well,
Just,
thank you.
I mean, it's easy to read. It's very clear. I love the quotes. I love the quotes that you have in here. You
Well,
know,
I
it's
quote you as well, and you're on the recommended reading list.
it's it's fabulous. The final word is that I am very, very excited to see that the concept of the human capital is getting such an emphasis in this whole structure of wealth and succession that to the fore has to be, as a human, what are we doing to develop wonderful human beings? And if we do that, then this wealth is going to be well managed. It'll be transferred well. Families will not get destroyed. You won't be plunged and overwhelmed with the responsibilities of wealth.
It's an important topic, and thank you for your a huge contribution to it, Lee. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to having another conversation with you soon.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day tomorrow at SpaceX.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lee. All
Bye
the
bye.
best. Bye.